That, however, is not my most grave concern about this proposal. My concern is about the impacts to Chaco National Historic Site. And because of the great work of Anna, I was inspired to go out there and to climb up the mesa and to imagine those roads and those connections and the amazing history, the amazing amount of work, the amazing cultural heritage that went into that. And we are not considering the impacts. And it needs to be done in a cumulative way, not on a piece-by-piece basis. The San Juan Basin has already been scarred forever by the oil and gas industry, and it's time for us to take that step back and look at the full and complete impacts this is having. It is not necessary. It should be done not on an accelerated basis, but through a full environmental impact statement. And I fully agree with the first speaker that ACECs should be considered, they should be examined, they should be designated before any of this moves forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Van Denzen. I apologize for mispronouncing your name. Herman Aguilar. After Herman, we'll hear from Donna House. Donna?
Hi, I'm Herman Aguilar. I'm a 14-year member of 798 local union. I'm not very much of a good speaker, but I am here to say I'm for this pipeline to go through. Not only that I'm for it, but I know that it's beneficial to not only the state of New Mexico, but to this whole surrounding communities. It's beneficial in economics, being that its money is put into this area. More, not only money, but more people, more jobs, more. There's a lot more things that are put into this. I mean, this is just a map of showing you what can be done. It's the infrastructure is there. It needs an update. It really does. I mean, it's proposed along the lines that have been there. It needs something that's new and upgraded that way. There is no environmental issues. There is no more, how would you call it? There's just better infrastructure, period. Like I said, I'm for it. I also want to say too that a lot of the stuff that you guys have mentioned out here, part of it, I would say, is true, but it's due to union or non-union contractors that have put in these lines and have done bad work to show. I mean, you guys talk about it. If you guys were to hire union contractors, the job would be done right, and also it would just be done right, period.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Donna House. After Donna, we'll hear from Kathy Sanchez. Kathy, still here? Okay, thank you.
Yonde, I'm Donna House. I am a botanist and a citizen of the Navajo Nation from Oak Springs in Arizona. I wanted to, first of all, say that I oppose the Pinon pipeline as a project. And I can't believe BLM has called this a project because it's beyond a project. I also oppose BLM's approach to saying that this is an EA. This is beyond an EA. It should be an EIS, and for many reasons I have, not in my right here, but in my flash drive, I have information as far as the different violation I think that BLM has left out in this process, even in the scoping. There are rare plant species along the proposed project, the pipeline. There are culturally significant plants that are proposed along the pipeline. There are listed rare birds that are proposed along the pipeline. There are invertebrates, butterflies, that are there along the proposed pipeline. BLM has not at all provided a list of critical areas or areas that are significant culturally from the Pueblos and from the Navajo Nation, the Jicarilla, and the Ute. And that really concerns me. In 2003, I was involved in the resource management plan that BLM put together. I was very disappointed at that time when I was working on it. And at that time, they had not consulted with the tribes. And that was one area that I was working on as far as trying to get them to consult with the tribes. Because when you're consulting with the tribes, you're not just consulting with the government, you're consulting with the citizens within each of the chapter. And as I looked at the aerial photos of that area, there are people that don't have phones, that don't have electricity, so I'm not sure how they can actually listen to your announcement announcing these hearings. There's not a post office near them. They have to travel to Farmington, Albuquerque, or to Gallup. And that to me is a big concern. This has been a concern with all the federal agencies and the Navajo Nation. They have left the citizens out of the whole process. I have to say that BLM has to do a survey, feel, as far as what's out there. They haven't done that. You know, they're totally ignoring the National Historic Preservation Act, the Archaeological Resource Protection Act, the National Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, Federal Land Policy and Management Act, the National Environmental Policy Act, Executive Orders 12898 and 1307. And this doesn't even include all the laws and codes within the Navajo Nation that protects our resources and sacred sites. And the Pueblos. There has been 2 moratoriums that have been proposed by the Navajo Nation and the Eastern Navajo Agency Council. And the whole thing was around fracking in the San Juan Basin. They wanted BLM to consider a moratorium, or actually demanded a moratorium, on fracking in the area because they didn't understand it and they wanted to know the impact that it was going to have on the culture. And here we are proposing, and I am sure, and I know that BLM has violated that moratorium. There's also a document that I have from the Pueblos of Governors, was a resolution 2014-04 that also asked for a moratorium. And this was from the Pueblos, all the Pueblos. In 2003, there was only 2 Pueblos that had wrote comments, and they said, you need to go and you need to talk to each of the Pueblos. I don't know whether or not that has been done. And again, BLM's way of communication is lacking and totally inappropriate culturally and to the public. I have been working in that area for a long time, especially intensely with the fossil fuel. We have people for generations living in that area. living in that area that has donated energy from the very beginning. We have given up our energy and we are still in poverty. There is no money there for the local people. And I don't understand why we think that this is going to produce permanent jobs and jobs that are beneficial to the local people. I have been there, I have seen it. The people that benefit are the people, the corporations. The corporations need to be accountable for this. In that area, we have 2 huge power plants. We have a resource management plan that had at that time announced that it was going to have more than 10,000 drilling rigs in that area that I recall. That, to me, is a huge sacrifice that indigenous people from generations and generations that have lived with this legacy, more than 50 years with power plants and with BLM leasing. God, I think fracking is more than 50 years old. Of course, it's been so-called improved, which I don't believe it has. That area is low on water, climate change, and here we are proposing to develop crude oil, develop all this energy with water. About 48% of our water nationally is used for energy development. Energy. That to me is like totally incredible. So we need to be absolutely involved in the management plans that come out of BLM. BLM needs to do a better job in announcing and explaining and educating us on the Pinon pipeline. I don't see anyone, I don't see a document in Navajo or even a DVD that says this is how it's going to be in Navajo and in Spanish, because this is public land. We need to translate it in many different languages, not just English. Thank you. Oh, and you'll get my detailed species list.
Kathy Sanchez is next. After Kathy, we'll hear from Tina Garnanes. Tina? Okay, thank you.
I am Kathy Wempoli Sanchez, and it's customary to always speak in our native language to invoke our ancestors so they can be present to hear all that is being said. And I am Kathy Wempoli Sanchez of Tailwind United, and I'm going to read so that I can do it within this time. And I head the Environmental Health and Justice Program for Tailwind United, a citizen of San Alfonso Pueblo. And Tailwind United is a Pueblo women-led nonprofit organization located in Espanola. And I have reviewed the Bureau of Land Management's Pinon Pipeline project to transport crude oil passing through New Mexico public lands, New Mexico state lands, private lands, and Navajo Nation customary and allotted lands. The information provided does not address the risk of an accident and the impact on communities and the environment, our Mother Earth. Bureau of Land Management has approved over 100 permits to drill without notifying the public. Each Pueblo tribe and indigenous people-led nonprofit organizations on this application for permit to drill. Tailwind United is opposing the Pinon Pipeline project for these reasons. Bureau of Land Management didn't appropriately contact and consult with indigenous people-led nonprofit organizations. Bureau of Land Management didn't engage in government-to-government consultation for all federal undertaking affecting each Pueblo's traditional cultural properties and sacred sites, as mandated by the National Historic Preservation Act, the Archaeological Resource Protection Act, the National American Graves Protection and Reparation Act, the Federal Land Policy Management Act, and the National Environmental Policy Act and Executive Order 12898 and 13007. Bureau of Land Management didn't respect the Public Council's Governor's Resolution APCG 2014-04 that supports the protection of Chaco Canyon systems and all traditional cultural properties and sacred sites affiliated with Chaco Canyon. And I'll attach the resolution with my written papers. In addition, we propose to Bureau of Land Management to impose a moratorium on approving new leases and drilling permits targeting the shaft until the BLM upgrades its resource management plan to ensure that it has appropriate health and environmental safeguards in place. Fracking and drilling will require about 1.3 million gallons of water. Water is precious to Pueblo people and to all. Water used in oil and gas development is so contaminated that it can't be returned to rivers and streams. It must ultimately be deposed in large underground injection wells. And I have an illustration that I've been using with our youth is that if we think of our bodies being made up of Mother Earth's elements, and water is about 80% of our body. But if you do fracking, and if you use your body as an example, it would be like injecting into your butt and then you, animal? Where's that? and then it comes back out, and so it's like contaminated. If you're violating your own body in that sense, how can you do that to Mother Earth? That's not acceptable. The rest of my statement I'll attach in the written one, so thank you.
After Tina, we'll hear from Flora Ganarnez.
Hi, my name is Tina Garnanez, and I oppose the Pinon Pipeline for a million reasons. But the fear that I have right now, children. The people that are for this are basically saying, fuck my children, they deserve less than. That's great that you want a job, that's great that you want to pay for their college education, but what about my babies? What about asthma? What about cancer? What about all these ailments people in the Four Corners on the Navajo Nation suffer from due to uranium mining, coal-fired power plants, oil, gas? Let's really think about this. Does this seem like a good idea? I don't think so. No. You got to consider grazing. You have to consider cultural traditions. That area might seem desolate, barren, but that's what we Navajo people love about it. That's where we find peace and quiet, harmony with the earth. You've also got to consider the violence in the border towns, Farmington, Gallup, Grants. Think of all the violence that Native Americans have suffered at the hands of folks who've come in for jobs. That will only increase because I've read several studies about the boomtown increase in violence in Pennsylvania, in Texas, in North Dakota. It's only going to come to New Mexico. There's been an increase in violent crimes, an increase in sex trafficking, prostitution, hard drug use, meth, not just marijuana. There have been an increase in DUIs. New Mexico is notorious for DUIs. Do we really want to up that number? You also must consider water. We live in the desert. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's sacred. It's life. Fracking uses a lot of water, but you also must consider a lot of that water is already contaminated thanks to uranium mining. Navajo people who have to drive 30 to 50 miles to get drinking water for the day are now going to be even more fucked than they've ever been because they're just going to contaminate the water. People in Pennsylvania, Texas, North Dakota, California, all of them have admitted to either regretting their decision to allow big oil into their backyards, or they've completely banned fracking and the big oil businesses from coming into their counties. Mora is a great example. Let's do what they've done. Jobs. All right, let's talk about jobs. Who's hiring? What is the name of the company that's hiring?
Western. Good question.
Yeah, exactly. And if they are hiring, what are their hiring requirements?
5 years of training and apprenticeship in the union to weld.
Right. And so, do you think, how many of the Native Americans, nobody else interrupted your talk, hold on. So you also have to think about when they promise jobs to the Native Americans who are living out in the middle of nowhere, they're wanting to get those jobs, right? Because they said, that's what we'll give you if you allow us to put this pipeline across your land. Do you think they're going to hire all those people at that chapter house waiting for these jobs? Or are they going to truck someone else in? Are they going to hire someone else more qualified who's already in that industry? So jobs, that's great, but at what cost? Think about it.
Next, we'll hear from Flora Garnones. After Flora, we'll hear from Mitch Buzel.
Yate, she Flora Gardeners in here. For corners that nasha. I have a question. Yes, there's jobs out there. That's what they said to my dad. He died when he was 57, working in the uranium. They said there's job for you. They didn't speak English. Yeah, they all came. Where are they now? All dead. All my uncles, grandpas, they're not here with us anymore. Because there was job for them in uranium. But when they had the job, did they say, you're going to die of cancer? Did they tell them that? No. So they all died of cancer. Now, what is this coming up to? The same thing? This sounds like it because when they just came into the reservation and said there's jobs. They didn't go around the chapters. They didn't ask anybody if it was okay. Sounds like just the same thing happening again. And I don't like it. I don't want that pipeline going through. We have sheep. We love our sheep. We have them when I was small. They're my pets. Every one of them. They all have names. I'll give you one name of my sheep that was born right when Obama was being elected. So it's called Obama. So we have different names for them and we love them. We want to keep them. That's our food. And we also do farming. And we at least, thank God, that we have natural springs. And I hope nobody